All right, Joel Gausten here from joelgausten.com. For this conversation, I'm delighted to be joined by two musicians whose latest work I've been busily digesting and redigesting and considering. And it is my pleasure to welcome joining me from my old stomping grounds in Los Angeles, Kevin Rutmanis and Gina Skwoz from Lords and Lady Kevin. Good
You
afternoon.
know, when you what did you, how did he put it?
Digesting?
You digest something, you know what happens next.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's probably where we belong more in your anus.
Well, let's not keep this terribly linear, but I wanted to kind of give a brief introduction to who you both are and what led you to join me for this chat. For the viewer who may not be familiar with Kevin, Kevin's a veteran musician, played in the Melvins for quite a few years, was in an amazing band even before then called the Cows that we'll get into a little bit later. Tomahawk with Mike Patton. Um, Various projects. Gina is originally a visual artist from Perth, Australia. You are the drummer in the current project, and you both are. I already know I'm going to love this. You're both not only partners in music, but partners in life. And since I guess
Ooh.
20, you've been involved in a project called originally called Lord and Lady Kevin. Along the way, you were joined by David from God Bullies. The moniker was rechristened Lords and Lady Kevin. Sadly, David passed away a couple years back, and you have a new record out with Trevor Dunn from Mr. Bungle. And interestingly enough, the gentleman who succeeded you uh,
Replaced. He replaced me.
replaced. I was trying to be nice.
There's no time for that.
No time for niceties. And the album, let me just make sure. There's a lot of words in all this stuff, so I'll make sure I get it right. The album is the name is Done with Lords and Lady Kevin. The album is called Last Days at Hot Slit. Came out on the 6th of December. And let me start the conversation this way because I get a lot of records sent to me. And the way I test if a record's good or not, in my opinion, is I put it on when I do other work. I'm also a professional writer. So
Vacuuming.
I'm sorry?
When you're vacuuming the house, that's when you listen to it.
Yes, when I'm vacuuming the house or on my way to church, various activities, or after digesting,
Yeah.
a good record for that. But no, I put it on when I was writing. And if a record makes me stop what I'm doing, I consider it a good record. And this record made me stop, but frankly, it made me stop because I had to think to myself, what in the hell am I actually listening to right now? And listen, I have plenty of Jan Deck records here. I got plenty of John Zorn. I was in Pigface for 18 years. I've
Were
been
you?
Yeah, I've interviewed the
Oh,
Shags for Christ's sakes, so I know a lot about esoteric music, but your album is the first one in a long time that really made me stop and go, what exactly am I experiencing here? Um, which I thank you for because I get so much of the same stuff sent to me. This was such a fresh sound. So let's kind of start in the present and kind of work backwards. So you've got this new album with Trevor. It's an adventurous listen and it's an experimental listen, for want of a more descriptive name for it. Walk me through how this particular release came to be because it's a unique listening experience that I haven't quite gotten my head fully around yet. But obviously, it's the two of you. Uh, Dunn's involved with it, obviously. Um, was this a plan to go into, we're going to make an album now, Trevor, let's do something? Or was it just sort of something that kind of was assembled along the way as things were kind of coming to your respective heads?
take it, Gina.
Um, I guess I don't know. It sort of came together. I was visiting my family in Australia, and I'd never really played drums before, and I just decided that I was going to play drums, and so I recorded a bunch of stuff, and sent it to Kevin, and just like coincidentally, he was actually writing some guitar that he wanted, that style of, improvised and I don't know how you describe it. Free drums.
It was exactly what I was planning in my mind, and I hadn't said anything to her, so it was quite a surprise. It was perfect. It landed in my lap, and I was like, "This is exactly what I wanted to do." I'd already done a record with Trevor, 2 records.
One. Oh, two.
Two. And so that was already happening anyway. I don't remember.
I think, yeah. So we were sending stuff back and forth, and like Kevin had said,
you and me, or
you and I.
Yeah.
And I think Trevor had messaged Kevin saying something like, "Oh, we should do that again," or something like that.
I don't remember.
Yeah, and so we eventually.
We both really he and I had a lot of fun on those other records, so it wasn't like it was a natural thing. And if you're talking about I don't know what word you use, but the fact that it's hard for you to get your head around, that wasn't by design. And honestly, I'm constantly surprised by how wacky everyone's finding it. Because I'm just saying that wasn't what I was trying to do, and it never sounds that way to me, but that doesn't tell us much. I'm a little bonkers.
Well, to move away from a standard music journal question, I'm sure you get endlessly asked, how do you describe your music? You've worked with a wide array of musicians who would be considered, esoteric themselves in many cases. What has the response been from peers to this album and this greater project along the way?
It's been very quiet. I guess I haven't really talked about it whenever I'm around colleagues, we don't ever talk about our work really.
Each other being gay.
Yeah, it's a lot of 9th grade humor, and that's about life. Yeah, and their moms. Yeah. You wouldn't believe how childish we all are. So it really is, texting each other about licking your mama's pussy and stuff like that. It's not really. So yeah, it doesn't come up much. It's more childish than you can even imagine.
Logistically, how was this record put together? Because I know, there's a lot of geographic differences between yourself and Trevor. Was this really just a matter of, taking this file here, putting it here, or were there actually in-person opportunities to work together on this? How is this all kind of put together?
It's all long distance.
Yeah, it was all sending the files back and forth.
It's kind of like improvised or composed Jesus Christ. Puked on the minute, and then we kind of structure it and send it back and forth and add stuff. And
Trevor described it as like a collage.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because he said he approaches it differently than like a verse chorus thing, because that's not really the structure of the songs. But in my head, I guess, I don't know how long I've been doing it this way, but it's, how they say like a song is A, B, A, B, A, C, the parts. And I think ours tend to be A, B, the end, like that. So that might be, I don't know. And also I really like using his name, because anything you put behind it, it sounds like you're done with it.
Right.
Done with Kevin being my favorite.
Right.
Or done with whatever I said, because the humor is that Tomahawk was, you got it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Trevor's a really hard person to not like. You really have to bend over backwards to not like working with him. And, of course, he's so good, and his ideas are always great. And it's fun for everyone because we're not really dictating to each other at all. I was really thinking this part would we're not precious about it. Like if there's a part that I love and then he ruins it by stepping all over it, I just leave it.
Mhm.
You know, I made the comparison to someone else because it made me seem more together in my head is that than I am. That I read that David Bowie, when they did Man Who Sold the World, he had those guys in the band just improv and he'd pick out parts he liked. It's kind of the same process, only of course
Mhm.
David Bowie.
his songs are much better.
And I will admit this new album was my first introduction to this project.
Yeah,
And I've been diving into the earlier stuff, and I'll put all the links up in the video description so people can check out the other recordings you've done as well, and of course this record. Um, and a lot of it does, speak to this sort of experimental kind of put things up there and see what happens thing. And I don't want to speak for you, so I want to kind of frame this to kind of have you do some of the heavy lifting with it. But I'd have to imagine, because you've been active since the 80s. I mean, the Cows was an 80s thing. I'd imagine your discography's got to be 50 plus at this point.
I think
Uh,
that's exactly right, about 50.
yeah, I mean, has this for you been kind of a matter of answering that sort of what now question? Because when you have so much amass, it's kind of like, well, where do you go? Do you do another Melvins thing? Do you do another Cows
Uh,
thing? You know?
it's not quite that concrete. It's more, I get an idea before. I have ideas for records ahead of time, not specifically the songs, although sometimes, but just this, what kind of bricks I'm going to use for the shitty wall I'm going to build. So I go ahead that way, but other than that, it's just there. It's not conscious. It's like natural human progression, I think. I mean, people had trouble getting their heads around the Cows, and to me, that was practically rockabilly, And then I don't know what. That sounds more arrogant than I mean it. I'm always have been since the beginning. I am now a little surprised at how it hits people. It always hits them more, them. It seems to be a bigger pill to swallow than I ever mean it to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not mad at me, are you?
No, never, never. I love the record too much to hate you, man.
Ah, that's it. Keep feeding that ego.
Oh
Come
yeah,
on.
yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. But listen, I mentioned earlier, listened to the record and I stopped, and I really, um, I read the press release after I listen to the record,
Oh,
when I get stuff sent to me, because I don't want to have anything. I want to go into it blind, because I don't want to go in with expectations, and this guy was from this band and that guy was from that.
press releases are bullshit. Let's face it.
Yeah, I've written enough of them. Um,
Yeah,
but put the record on, let the record tell me what the record wants me to know. Don't
yeah,
don't rely on that. So I put this on blind. I didn't read the track listing. I didn't read anything. I just put it on.
good.
And before long, I'm like, they're playing Mingus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, I had to kind of listen hard to realize, I'm like, they're playing Mingus. So how did the
Really
music,
just kept them. We really just kept the words and the vocal
right?
melody.
Right. But I picked it up. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So, you know, um, so I got to ask you about that, because I've never mentioned the name Charles Mingus on this channel. So, that's cool. So how did that sort of spark hit where you wanted to kind of, do something with that particular song and run it through the
Well,
machine, as it will?
first I want to interject that we played. This is one of my actually I didn't. This is one of my favorite things that's ever happened alive ever. We talked about it, but I didn't realize how much I liked it. Is we played that song live in Minneapolis, and there was someone in the audience loudly singing along that loved the song. I thought that was great.
Yeah, they must have.
Yeah, that was really good. Next, we're gonna do Rasan Roland Kirk. I'm just kidding. I just really like. I don't know how that came up. A lot of these songs I intentionally intentionally. A lot of the songs, the lyrics are from like gospel or blues or I don't know why. I mean, that's my favorite record of his anyway. That oh yeah, and that's I don't know. I don't remember. It just popped in my head, and the melody fit perfect, which surprised me. To my ears. It fit perfectly, and that was a. Oh, you know what Gina had? She had manipulated the song.
Originally had a lot faster, and I took it and just like slowed everything down and made it more ethereal and that kind of.
Yeah, and I think I already had the idea, and I think I tried singing the melody, and it's to my ears it fit. So that's it, really. It's just a love of that song. And no, in fact, I think Trevor was a little disappointed that he didn't realize it was Mingus till after he'd already recorded his part. He's like, oh, I didn't realize it. But I thought what he did was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And staying with Trevor for a minute, I caught Bungle's last tour, and obviously he's a phenomenal musician, and
He's an upright guy. He's a stand-up guy.
there you go. There you go. And Gina, if I'm not mistaken, your moniker that you use for your art, that's a Bungle reference, right? Skwoz?
Yeah, it's really funny. When I was a teenager, like I loved Mr. Bungle, and that's when I sort of started doing art. And I took the name from one of their songs because in my mind, this is how it formulated. I really liked the song, and also I thought it'd be a great name for a cat. And I thought I want to name myself after a cat because I love cats. This was when I was about 16 or something, 17, and so it just kind of stuck. And as like that's what I used, and here we are now. So it's funny how.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
How
weird coincidence.
Things work out. Yeah.
And you've done projects, just the two of you, under your own steam, and you've worked with Kevin away from this project, and now Kevin's on his new Trevor is on this new record. What do you think he added? What were the ingredients he brought to this that made his new album what it was, as opposed to being, with taking the done with out of it, and then just going on with your own bad selves, as it were.
Well, he brought pretentious condescension to the kidding.
It was just a lovely surprise, really, because we'd
released all those songs actually without him on a cassette.
Yeah.
We'd had a lot of it already done. And then so he really added a lot if you look at it that way.
It's totally changed the feeling of the songs and just everything.
When it's just the two of us, it's more bare bones, obviously. Yeah, we made a cassette and it was called The Thing because we took all the titles from John Carpenter's The Thing soundtrack, just because I thought those were the best song titles ever. And so then we just constructed those songs. I don't remember how this all progressed, but basically a lot of them are, not all of them, but a lot of them are those basics. And then we sent it to him and he added it stuff and we cut it apart and stuff. It's really a lot of fun, and everyone has free reign, which is really, it's a lot more fun than I have any right to endure. It's great.
We just let Trevor do whatever he wants, so that is also a great addition because it's things that we'd never even imagine are going to happen. It's always just like this amazing surprise, and he's so great and so creative. So
I do that with engineers too.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've already sat over their shoulders for enough records where they know stuff I don't know. So I say, this is your big chance to do the stuff that no one lets you do, go crazy. So it's really taught us to not be very precious about parts because they're going to change and I'm not going to forbid them. Oh, you know what? I didn't mean do whatever you want. You you can't play over that part because it's amazing, and that's a nice exercise up here too. It's just like, really cut it loose and let the world do with it what it will.
Yeah,
that's fun. It's a little weird.
I really love the drumming on the record. Being a drummer myself, I was hearing things that really kind of excited me because it's not what I would define as traditional rock drumming. Let's call
No, no, you wouldn't.
it. If I understand correctly, Gina, you started drums really at the start of this project back in 2020, right?
Actually, no. In 2020, I was doing, like, when we started, I was playing bass and doing like synthesizer and computer stuff. I only started playing drums when we did start this
Well,
record.
that's
So
what he's saying.
no, you said 2020.
Oh, because the year.
Yeah,
Ah.
it was 2023, I think,
Right. She started at that record.
at this record.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
Oh, I'm saying that record because we're already deep into another one. Yeah, so that she sent me tracks. Like I was thinking about this idea of doing some kind of bluesy, minimalist kind of, well, early blues is like that anyway, and like religious music, but with more open, free drumming. And I'm not even kidding. Like the next day, she sent me record. Oh, I did these drums, and it was just the style I was thinking. So very quickly, yeah, she went straight to that. I like that. She never did a 4/4 beat. She went straight into that.
yeah, that's how I just thought, I'm just gonna just go for it and just improvise.
Mm,
I've been listening to this guy, Davey Williams. I don't know if you've heard him.
I
He's
have.
like an improvisational guitar. He's dead now, but he was this amazing improv musician. And I don't know, that kind of stuck in my brain.
We use him a lot as a reference point, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of people don't know about him. I found him online, and a lot of his releases were cassettes. But you can find, if you're interested, I can send them to you. But he's really special. Southern guy from a little town,
Mm.
and improv. He wrote a book about improv that's so great because it barely talks about it. He's like, yeah, I went to this house.
Improvise.
Yeah, like, and he's a delight, and he plays a lot with this woman, LaDonna Smith, who
Mm.
does the violin. She's still alive, and he's a real inspiration to us because I've mentioned this in other interviews. It's the most cheerful, free music I've ever heard. Usually all the discord. It always feels a little dark to me. Not always, but often. But his is really cheerful and fun, but it's pretty abstract. He's bold, so he's a
Yeah.
nice touchstone for us.
Yeah, hook me up. I'd love to hear that. I'm surprised I haven't before, but yeah, I'm
Nobody
very,
seems to. I asked Trevor about it. He didn't know it either. I
yeah.
came across it on a blog. I do a lot of that looking for esoteric music online. And I came across one I listened to, and I was like, whoa. And I hunted down as many as I could find. And it's something else. You'll like it, I bet.
Yeah, yeah. So he's mostly cassettes then, kind of like a Daniel Johnston vibe in that respect.
Yeah, although there's some vinyl. There's some vinyl. It's both. I found actually one of the ones that I really loved, and I found it on Discogs for now. I don't think he's really collected because, like us, none of us have really heard of him.
Mm.
So there's vinyl, yeah. And he did the paintings on the front that are real kooky too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love diving into stuff like that.
He's definitely, like Gina said, he's kind of a spiritual touch point for us.
Very,
That's where the drums came from, essentially, like just that idea of him.
Yeah.
so all this kind of begs the question for me because I'm listening to the record, and one of my recurring thoughts is, how is this going to translate live?
It's
Have
different.
you performed this live yet, or are there plans to do that moving ahead?
We've we've been playing these songs live
But without Trevor.
without Trevor for a while. And yeah, they're different. Like we've taken like the essence of the song, kind of like a lot. I mean, it's not completely unrecognizable, like
Yeah, you
but
can
obviously we can't, because the record is so improvised, we can't play it note for note. So we've just adapted it in a way,
a little more cohesive.
songs.
I mean, only to us, I've discovered.
Yeah, because
But I mean, that's true of any band I've been in. The live you're not really reproducing the record. That was a really great lesson that I learned in the Melvins, that they really don't. That's really not the motive for playing it live. How do we make it sound like the record? It's
Hmm.
how do we make this sound cool?
Right.
So we do it that way. I mean, like with gear, you probably learned it's if you're using other people's gear, it's easier to make that gear sound good than to make it sound like my gear. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, take the thing and make that appeal to you rather than trying to imitate something else that appeals. I saw of all people Alice Cooper in a really early interview when he was huge, the whole band, and they asked him something about how you reproduce this live, and he looked confused and he goes, "We're not doing the same thing live." I thought I mean, he wasn't. It was just natural, and I thought, oh, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
But we do play live. We'd like to work it out with Trevor, but we'll see. It'd be
Yeah.
nice. It'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be. Absolutely. I mentioned this to you, we chatted a bit before we started recording. But one of the things I love about doing this channel is not only having conversations with, musicians I'm really digging at the moment or have for a long time, is it helps me really discover how small the world is. And there's so
Mhm.
many intersections of people that you may not immediately realize are there. But you were, of course, with the Cows. And
Mhm.
there was a time when the Cows was signed to Treehouse Records.
Our
Uh,
first trip.
and Treehouse was, I guess, co-owned, we'll call it, by a guy named John Thompson, Johnny Dromette, who's a
Yeah,
Cleveland
Joe Matt.
legend. We lost him earlier this year. And I worked with John for 3 years.
That's
He and I worked
fantastic.
a newspaper called Poker Player. I was the managing editor. John was the art director. And we did that for years together. He worked in Cleveland. I worked out in right outside the LAX in Los Angeles at the Highwood Park Casino. I don't know if you know that place, but that's where my office was. And this
Nice.
is this is 20 years ago before, we were able to send zip files everywhere. He was working for us remotely out there putting together this newspaper. So I got to know John really well, and you're the first guest I've had on this channel where I can have a conversation about John. Tell me about a bit about your experiences with him, man, because I know Treehouse put out great music during that era, including yours. So this goes back probably well before I knew John. We're talking like mid to late
Probably
80s.
weren't born
Well, I was born in 77, but I was still a kid for sure.
We yeah, he died recently, and that was the first time I thought about him in a while. And I realized all of us guys in the Cows had nothing but great memories of him. We only hung out with him maybe a year or two at the most. He was the best. He was great. I remember. I think at the time he had this girlfriend Kathy, and she. They did You know that name?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They were a great couple, and I remember they did a photo shoot with the Cows, and we'd never done a photo shoot. And I think we were drinking Wild Irish Rose the whole time they were shooting us, and then we were out in this lake in the mud, but we were still dry, whatever. And then I remember them going because they didn't drink, and I remember John going, "We don't drink, but you guys are the first time we really felt like drinking." For what it's worth, he was great. I loved his art. I think he might have done New Picnic Time, which was so simple and so good. I really liked his art, so that was exciting when we found out he was that guy. I think he was one of those guys that worked nonstop because I had this really old zine, but it was nicely done called CLE, like the beginning of Cleveland. And I looked, dog is packing some. And I looked, and he had done the magazine, so he really had his fingers in everything. I think he had something to do with the pagans too. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was. We loved him. We called him Porno John because he had interests, and he educated us about stuff we didn't even know existed. But he was the best. We really liked. I miss him. I remember his flat, monotone voice.
Hmm.
Yeah, did he have long hair when you knew him?
He had cropped it at that point. He had kind of like a super short haircut. Because he'd come visit. There were some times like we had to do business where we just couldn't do it remotely, and he'd come out and take care of it. And I remember he came to the office, and I was working with him for months until I realized who he was. And it was because I bought a Rocket from the Tombs album. And
He did the cover, didn't he?
yeah, I'm looking at the credit and I'm like, John Thompson, I drove. I'm like, John,
Yeah.
how could you not tell me, And then from that point, the floodgates opened. He'd show up to LA, he'd hand me like Peru box sets and all this beautiful
Oh,
stuff.
nice. We were both, that was one of our earliest things that we shared, connected, that we loved Peru.
Oh, yeah. And
What's that pink one called? Dada Panic, that 12-inch pink one.
yeah,
That's his art too, and I love that art since I bought the record back in the 1800s. It was so I've liked his art a long time.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I just said. Dub housing. Yeah, just a red scarf laying on a photo. It's so good.
yeah. He had a really sharp eye for those things. I'll have to send you some scans of the old issues he did with us because
Oh, I'd love to.
they look like Peruba record covers.
Yeah, that's his. It's his style.
Yeah,
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 he was really a good. One of my favorite people I met in the business. I'm
right.
glad this came up because I hadn't really thought about him. Right away, me and my brother were just like, "Oh, Porno John," because we used to stop by his house because he lived in the neighborhood. He's a very good memory.
Yeah. I mean, when he started working with us, I think he had just wrapped up working with Larry Flint, um, doing Hustler. So I know he kind of came
I
from,
didn't know he did that
yeah,
because my previous wife, who I'm still friends with, she's great. She worked at Hustler for a long time, so they may have known each other. I should ask her.
yeah, it's possible. I mean, that's that LA funnel too. You either, have done some kind of dealing with Flint Publications, either you work for them or they advertise that. Larry was an advertiser for Poker Player at that time, that John was working for. So he was still designing Flint type stuff. Um, but yeah, it's a small world. He was a beautiful guy. And talk about somebody who had a wealth of knowledge for music and a
Oh
passion
yeah.
for it. And he was the real thing. He produced the Pagans,
Listen.
what the shit called love. He produced them. He managed Mike Hudson. I'm not sure how one manages Mike Hudson, but
I don't know who is that. Is that a guy from the Pagans?
yeah, it was the singer from the Pagans. He's
Oh, I remember him.
yeah,
He drinks.
yeah. He drank past tense. He drank a little too much and he went
Oh, he
up,
died.
you know. He was another interesting guy, I got to know him years later, and it's just like these iconic people, that leave an impression. They come, they say what they're going to say, they do what they're going to do, and then they move on. John was definitely one of those. So, yeah, rest in peace. I'm glad his name finally came up on this channel,
Me,
and
me too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Good guy.
Absolutely. So you've got the new album out. It's just a few days old at this point. We're concluding this year fairly soon. What does it look like for your 2025, either with this project or anything else you might have coming down the pipeline musically?
We've already
We have another record that's mostly in the can, but we're waiting for Trevor's part. So it's not really we've got a good solid start on a bunch of songs, like 8 songs. And it's a pretty different direction by design. Trevor and he had gone out with King Dunn. He was doing a thing with Buzzo, he and as a duo,
Mhm.
and they had just gone to Europe, and he and I were talking a lot, Trevor and I, on text, because we were both reading. Do you know this writer, Louis Ferdinand Celine?
I don't.
Oh well, he's something else, and there's controversy with him because later in his life he got mixed in with the Nazis. He's crazy, but he's a great writer, really good. And Trevor never. And we were reading, so we were both reading the same book. God, this is so dainty. We were both reading the same book, and then like exchanging. I hadn't really thought about it. It's like watching a TV show with your girlfriend on the phone. So we were exchanging quotes that we loved and stuff. I know, I never really. And he was like, "Oh, we should do something based on Celine." And so I started rolling with that idea. So we're using a lot of his lyrics, his just quotes and stuff, not 100%, but that was the starting point of the new one. And Gina and I had been really, this is kind of a weird jump, but we'd been listening a lot to the like 10 years ago um, vaporwave stuff when the kids were first starting doing it and they were doing it in their houses. So it was a way more, it's become this kind of flat, not as interesting, but when there was just people isolated in their bedrooms doing it, it was really cool and kind of hostile in this very subtle way. But we really loved the music and the art. So it's kind of springs from that a little bit. It's still clearly us, but it's cool because then it was using a new element because a lot of it's like corporate or soft music sampled and then changed, and then we added our playing to it. And the early kids weren't playing anything with it; they were just doing cool at it. It's kind of like chopped and screwed done with corporate music. So that entered into the picture, and that's it for it. The music's much more ethereal, and I don't know. I got lost. You get it.
We're working on.
That's what we've been working on. Because the last one was more about the gospel and the blues and the.
Up there.
After that last one was pretty much done, Trevor texted me and went, "Hey, this is a blues record." I said, "You're right."
Record's a blues record.
Kind of, yeah. I think that most of the music I've done is maybe more blues based than I or the rest of the world ever really realized.
When I first heard the Cows before me and Kevin started talking, I always thought they were just a blues band. I was like, this is the best.
It is definitely blues based. Yeah, I don't know if even that was conscious, really. Partly it was because me and my brother started the band, just the two of us. And when I first taught myself guitar, I was just playing along with the most rudimentary four-note blues records ever. And so maybe that just sort of imprinted in me that style of. But yeah, I've totally lost my thread. So anyway, you know what I like about that early blues? I'm sure you listened to it. Is those guys, and I think this unfortunately stuck to me. Is those guys pay almost no attention to how many times they do something. Like they'll repeat a line 5 times or 3 times, and it's real odd, and sometimes it's kind of dissonant. It seems like they just ignored it, or they didn't care, or they didn't know. So I think that kind of stuck on me a little bit too. And then those simple scales and stuff. This stuff's weird. I'm sure you probably listen to Doc Boggs, right? You know this guy?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's
Name.
a white guy, which is, I guess, irrelevant. But his stuff is so black, like dark. It's not going to go have a picnic and barbecue with Pa. It's not like that. It's like, I don't even know. It's very has a very dark feeling, and it's banjo, which is cool to hear it be. It's just it's scary. That's what it is. It's scary music, and I guess that somehow has something to do with what we're doing. Like the Cows were definitely. We never sat around and talked about the blues. I don't think we would have liked that, but it was certainly there, and it was. But we were able to attach our own selves to it, or else we attached that style onto us. We weren't singing about the barbecues either.
Well, I mean, one thing I've always thought is wonderful about music, whether you're a creative person, you're making the music, or in my case, doing that and talking to people who make music, is when you create something and you put it out in the world, it stops being yours in a way where
Absolutely.
it comes about what the other person feel about it. And I know even myself, I've had people say things about stuff I've done. I'm like, really? You got that out of it? So that's what's really neat because you're filtering it through somebody else's experience and whatever it evokes for them, and they may have a completely different experience than the one you had anticipated they would have. So it's
For
one of the
sure.
things about putting out a record, and that's why I asked you earlier about what do people think, about what you've done because this album is so very different than anything else I'd heard this year. It's kind of like, okay, well, here's a game. What do you think about this? So it's one of those neat, adventurous moments in music that I love to receive, and I'm so
That's
grateful
great.
I got this record. And like I said, it's
That's the
one.
best thing you can hear about your own music. I mean, really, we kind of have the attitude of once it's done, put it out there. It's kind of none of our business what happens from there, you know. I mean, it's famously Andy Warhol said something to the effect of finish it, put it out there, and start on a new thing while everyone's deciding if they like it or not.
Right.
That's kind of I feel compelled to be constantly doing it because I feel better when I'm working on stuff. It's just, I'm not in my head and I'm doing the thing that I enjoy. It's relaxing. I kind of just do it all the time for probably that reason. So it's nice to keep things coming out as long as I can trick someone into doing
Excellent. And Gina, I've really been blown away with some of the artwork of yours that I've checked out. I'll put links up in the video for that stuff as well. And again, if you're watching this video and you're new to my guests and especially the new record, check this stuff out. It's not something you're going to hear every day, and
or
that's
like.
well, we'll see. I love it because it's not what I hear every day. If I write a review or interview a female-fronted symphonic metal band, big surprise, I'll get 50 symphonic metal bands sending me stuff the next week. And that
Oh,
stuff is great, but a lot of things get kind of samey after a while. There are so many like new metal bands you can listen to. So to have something kind of come on my radar that's so different, especially too, because I know press releases have to do their thing, and it's Kevin from the Melvins and Tomahawk, and you think instantly, oh, okay, well maybe this is Melvins meets Tomahawk. No, no, no,
sure.
no, 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 no. And that's a beautiful thing. It's like, where does it go from here? What's the next thing? So um,
Well,
I'm
it's
really
nice to have open ears, listening like yourself. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people that it's strange and maybe a little bit hard to penetrate, but I'm hearing that people don't mind that, which is really nice. And it's reassuring a little bit, that people are, like the people that are talking to us have obviously listened to it and are thoughtful, So that I think that's great. I mean, that's part of the reason I think we like Davey Williams so much is that he was way more abstract than us, but just it's inviting because of the spirit of it.
mm.
Uh,
Your record's kind of like, it reminds me when I was a high school student in a music class. One day our instructor turned off all the lights in the room. So it was like
that,
pitched up, right? And then he said, just don't say a word, don't talk, just sit in silence. And we did that for a few minutes. And he turned the lights on. He goes, how long did it take before you started hearing the sounds in the room? Because if you're sitting in the dark, then you start
mm,
listening to the fan, the ventilation system, or there may be something outside in the hallway or, whatever it is. So it's like you have to zero in on your environment. That's kind of how it was with your record. Because at first it was like, and it's like, what is this I'm processing? The more I've listened to it, the more things I've picked up, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get this. There's so many shades and so many things that aren't immediately apparent on this record. That's what makes it such a joy to listen to. So I would tell the viewer, give it at least 3 to 5 listens before you formulate any opinion on it, because you're going to hear different things every time you listen to it. At least that's my experience from it.
that's
So,
great. In my ears, there's a so apparent to me, but it's because I'm standing inside the songs, but I can hear a direct line from Cows to this new record.
mm,
It's to my ears, it's one of the most cow-like records I've done in a long time, and that wasn't that's just how it sounds to me. It sounds like the same spirit of just kind of feeling your way around. I remember Shannon used to say when we'd practice, he'd go, "I can hear you feeling around,"
mm.
like he enjoyed it. He said, "I can hear you feeling around for stuff," and then that's how he approached it too. to me, if you liked the Cows, you might get something out of this, but maybe I'm nuts.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think it makes sense that the people who are on the album made this album based on their experiences.
Yeah.
But it's not a record that immediately is apparent, and
No,
that's what I love about it the most. It's not like, okay, it's Melvins meets Cows, it's
right.
it's a different thing, and that's what's great. And it's inspiring for me because knowing John and stuff like that, he introduced me to so many bands and, people from his scene back in the old days, and to see so many people still out there doing things, but not just playing the old songs, like they're doing something new. Like, where is this
Yeah.
going to go next? It's so goddamn inspiring. And I'm really inspired by this record because you've been
Well,
at the
that's
game
great.
for so long.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
know what it sounds like? I just realized it sounds like 25 to 30% of Cows and Melvins doing because those bands are all the sum of the whole. And that's all I have to say.
Well, cool. Again, it's a fantastic record. My congrats to you to both.
Thank you so much. I
And
appreciate it.
Trevor, for creating it. I look forward to hearing what comes next and Gina seeing what comes next artistically. And just wish you a happy rest of this year and next year. And I hope that our paths cross again.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much. And I'll try to give me your email and I'll send you some Davy Jones.
William.
Yeah,
Davy Jones. And some Davy Williams.
you can send me Davy Jones too. I got nothing bad to say about Davy Jones.
I remember hearing when I was a kid that he was a porno guy. It was one of those myths.
What
But
what a photo connection in this conversation.
I would love to see some hardcore porn with him and smiling.
I can pass on that, but
You could do it now with AI, no problem. Maybe I'll do that. A bunch of Davy Jones pulling a train with a bunch of other Davy Joneses.
So it's like a kaleidoscope. Like it just
Yeah. And then play Monkeys songs in the background. God, I'm a genius.
I think I was going to say the world needs that, but certain parts of the world need that. So you should.
I need that.
All right then.
Thanks for everything. It was really nice to talk to you.
Likewise. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.